Real quick, you have not been spoiled by the thumbnail. I made it yesterday before I saw the movie. That being said, this is your final warning. Spoilers for the Super Mario Galaxy movie ahead. The Super Mario Galaxy movie has officially released, and... what? How is this video so early? Well, you see... yes, I went to the midnight release of the movie, and gosh, it was such a really weird experience. I originally wanted to film much more than I did, but it was really hard because there were a bunch of people, and it's harder to do than you think, okay? So instead, here's a picture of a $10 water bottle and me standing there. And what did I have to say when the movie was finished?
Yep, he certainly saved the galaxy. I was spot on with that prediction.
There's a lot to talk about, though. What actually happened in the movie? Is it building towards something much bigger? How is Star Fox in the movie? And what's with the negative reviews? Are they justified? My name is Spookydood. Make sure to like and subscribe. Now let's discuss. To start off, we need to go over what actually happened in the movie. Don't worry, this isn't going to take too long. Really quick before we get into it, too, unlike the previous All Lore Explained videos that I've done, I don't actually have footage of the movie. That would get this video taken down by Nintendo. So you'll have to deal with whatever was released in trailers, terrible MS Paint drawings, and random PNGs moving around. Sorry about that. We begin zooming through the cosmos, landing on the Comet Observatory. Rosalina is here and calls the Lumas to come read a story before bedtime. The Lumas, like the one in the first film, are all basically children. They act like kids and they talk like kids, and Rosalina frequently refers to them as her kids. I want to pause and interject real quick. There's a very obviously placed moment where the door in the Comet Observatory opens and Rosalina is standing there, proudly. There's enough of a pause for applause or cheers, but my theater was dead silent. Like, not just for Rosalina, the entire movie. They never cheered at all. They lightly chuckled at a joke or two, but that was it. Nearly packed theater. It's midnight. These people went to the midnight release and nobody said anything. You know, at first I was kind of concerned that it would be annoying to hear all these people screaming, but I would have preferred that over nothing. It felt depressing. Anyway. Rosalina goes to her bookshelf to choose a book for the Lumas, and I will mention that in this scene, if you look at the books she can pick from, one of the books has Tippy from Super Paper Mario on the spine. However, because Rosalina has no taste apparently, she picks the one about Princess Peach, but the Lumas don't want to hear about Peach, they want to hear about Mario and Luigi, and the story of the events of the first film. They're excited for Rosalina to tell the story, but before she can, a huge slam shakes the room. Rosalina leaves the Lumas, telling them to go to bed, only to be faced with Megaleg from Mario Galaxy. Rosalina summons her powerful wand to actually fight Megaleg, and she's pretty much winning most of the fight. She blasts it with lasers, is able to dodge all of its attacks extremely fast, and actually knocks it over. It's only when one of the Lumas shows up to see what's going on that the pilot of Megalegs figures out Rosalina's weak point, and fires bullet bills at the room the Lumas are in. Rosalina obviously protects them, but in doing so she is captured. Inside the robot, as expected, is Bowser Jr., who's trying to bring back respect to the Bowser name. Alongside him is Kamek, who is yet again a disliked henchman who keeps getting in Bowser Jr.'s way. A Luma tries stopping Bowser Jr., but he ends up getting captured as well. They're all taken inside a massive UFO ship that Bowser Jr. controls. Title card, and then cut to Mario and Luigi in the desert on bikes. If you've seen the trailer, you know what happens here. Mario and Luigi are in the Tostarena Kingdom, and the residents are asking for help with a scary sound coming from the pyramid. Mario and Luigi go inside to explore. They eventually find a pipe, and inside the pipe is Yoshi. A cute, silly rendition of Yoshi who's like, I don't know, I don't want to say he's super different than the games, but there's also this aspect to him that's kind of a bit odd in my opinion. He functions exactly like any other character would and seems to have the same level of cognitive awareness. He just can't speak except for saying the word Yoshi. Either way, there's a pretty funny sequence showing how Yoshi got into the warp pipe in the first place. We see him hatching in the sewers from the post-credits scene of the first movie, while he then walks around Brooklyn. He eventually knocks over a T-Rex skeleton at the museum and is chased into the sewers and through the warp pipe by the police. It is in this sequence, by the way, that we actually see a whole bunch of characters from the first movie. Spike, the dog from the first one, and Donkey Kong, and this is the only time these characters appear in this film. Anyway, we cut back to Rosalina stuck in Bowser Jr.'s massive UFO. Rosalina asks where Bowser Jr. is taking her, and he shows her a massive, scary, Bowsery planet, designed entirely like Bowser itself. It has lava, and the planet has like a big, scary Bowser mouth. And there's spikes and roller coaster rides, and Bowser Jr.'s face is carved into a mountain, and lava everywhere. All of Bowser's henchmen from the first movie are now here. Jr. gives a speech to his henchmen about how with Rosalina's powers, they will destroy the universe. However, after tugging too hard on the chains used to hold the Luma, Rosalina gets upset with Bowser Jr., shouting, "No one hurts my kids." She breaks out of her chains and starts to fight with Junior's minions. The Luma goes free and escapes. Bowser Jr., however, uses the paintbrush from Sunshine to create a goopy piranha plant that helps recapture Rosalina, locking her up in a chair where Junior can start to sap her powers. Now back in the Mushroom Kingdom, Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi gear up for Princess Peach's birthday party. Mario has a present for Peach and asks if Luigi thinks she'll like it. The movie has a repeating joke that starts here, where Mario is in love with Peach. It's not really a joke, but Luigi teases him about it, and Mario shyly brushes him off, and this kind of happens multiple times throughout the film. The three heroes go to Peach's party, and Mario finds her sitting alone on the roof. Peach admits she doesn't like birthdays. This isn't even her real birthday. This is just the day they celebrate because it's when the Toads found her for the first time. Peach says she never knew her family. She spent her entire life wondering where they are. Mario offers her support and gives her the birthday present. It turns out to be Peach's famous umbrella, the one she uses in many of the games. Suddenly, star bits start falling from the sky. Everyone looks up in awe, only to see a massive shooting star crash nearby. Mario, Peach, Luigi, and Yoshi investigate, and it turns out to be the Luma that had been captured with Rosalina. Peach takes the Luma up to her room, and the Luma explains that Rosalina has always told stories about Peach, and said that if she was ever in danger, that they need to find her. Luma tells Peach that a giant robot took Rosalina to a scary planet out beyond the Gateway Galaxy. Peach, well encouraged by the worried Toads to stay, decides to go alongside the main Toad, leaving a note from Mario and Luigi saying that they're responsible for protecting the Mushroom Kingdom until she gets back. Montage of Mario and Luigi fighting enemies from the games and using power-ups. This ends with the scene from the first trailer. Bowser is tiny and claims to be rehabilitated, so he wants to be freed and turned big again. However, Mario sends him into frequent rages that cause him to reveal his true villainous side underneath. Suddenly, the ground in the castle begins to shake. Bowser Jr. has arrived with his UFO and has begun sucking up Peach's castle, as he knows Bowser is inside. Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi evacuate the Toads and face Bowser Jr. He asks for Bowser to be handed over, but Mario refuses, and they have a really cool, visually impressive fight in which Jr. uses the paintbrush to turn him into cool, purpley powered-up forms. Just when it looks like Mario's got the upper hand, Megalegs descends on them with Kamek piloting, trying to assist Jr. Yoshi, however, eats Kamek and turns him into an egg, jumping into the pilot's seat and taking over. Chaos ensues, and ultimately Bowser Jr., Kamek, and Megalegs are sent back up to the UFO. The Megalegs robot explodes, and Peach's castle falls onto the planet below. Bowser's still frustrated with Mario, and yet again asks Mario to return him back to his regular size and free him. Bowser finds out, though, that everything that just happened was because Jr. was looking for him, and Bowser is shocked. He says that he was a bad father, and is surprised that Jr. wants to see him. Bowser says that maybe he could reconnect with his son. Cut to Gateway Galaxy, a big sort of traveler's hub connecting all different worlds, filled with crazy different species from all different franchises and Mario games. We see Piantas, these wooden block guys from Galaxy 2, the metal cleaner guys from Galaxy, and more. Peach walks up to a poster of Rosalina and suddenly has a flashback of when she was very young and holding onto a younger Rosalina's hand. Rosalina, however, let her go. Before she can figure out what this means, Toad is robbed. Ukiki the monkey takes Toad's bag, and he and the princess give chase, eventually finding themselves in a massive, seedy underbelly of the Gateway Galaxy. Basically the Mos Eisley Cantina of the Mario universe, I guess. We then see that Bowser Jr. is still searching for Bowser, while meanwhile he taunts Mario into finally punching him to turn him big again, by calling him a tiny, pathetic failure of a plumber. Bowser, now big, still claims he wants to be friends with Mario and Luigi. He doesn't turn on them immediately like you might expect him to. Meanwhile, Peach makes her way to a big six-sided casino shaped like a coin block, where all the walls are walkable. It's a cool set piece. Peach and Toad battle with Wart and his crew, another visually impressive crazy action scene, and eventually get Wart to tell them where Rosalina is. Yes, while they started just by chasing the monkey that stole Toad's bag, they ended up getting info from Wart because apparently he knows stuff. This is kind of just one of those movies, you know what I'm saying? They go to do the next thing and go to do the next thing and go to do the next thing, and you don't necessarily have to link it up. Yes, they're chasing after a monkey that stole Toad's bag, and then they get to the place, and it turns out that they know the information they just so happen to need, and it's like, whatever. You know, there's a level of that we can accept, but we're not at that point yet. We're not at the criticism point yet. So to continue. Mario and Luigi are cornered by the Queen Bee. As it turns out, this planet is like Honey Hive from Galaxy and ruled by bees. When the castle crash landed after the Bowser Jr. UFO let it go, it destroyed flower fields, and the Queen wants them imprisoned to work off the damage they did. But Bowser volunteers himself instead, truly expecting to do the work, no tricks up his sleeve. Mario tells him that he might not be as bad as he thought. They leave and are brought to the Gateway Galaxy. We cut to Bowser working in the mines, hacking away at stones with the other bees, only to be rescued by Bowser Jr. They reunite and Jr. reveals his full motivation. When Bowser Jr. was a kid, Bowser told him a bedtime story about how they would build their own planet called Planet Bowser, and it would have a universe-destroying cannon, but they'd need the power of a space princess, aka Rosalina, to do so. This bedtime story, by the way, was told through puppets, which was super fun because it's animated characters doing the puppets. So it's animated Bowser with a puppet on his hand doing the puppet show. I don't know, maybe it's just like a me thing, but I thought it was just such a fun concept. It's puppets on puppets, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, Junior has brought this bedtime story to life and tells Bowser that he's created Planet Bowser. In the Gateway Galaxy, Peach and Toad deal with Rob the Robot, who is remarkably slow in a pretty funny gag, and are led to the shipyard where we see Pikmin exit a tiny little ship. And we also meet Fox McCloud. There's this great bit where Fox explains who he is, and we see him and the other Star Fox characters in regular 2D animated form. Fox explains that his warp drive exploded, blew a giant hole in the fabric of space and time, and now he's been sucked into a different universe. He's trying to find a way to go home. He agrees to help fly the Princess and Toad to Space Junk Galaxy where Planet Bowser is in exchange for some money. Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi finally arrive and meet up with Peach, Toad, and Fox. The 6-person team then fly in an R-Wing while Star Fox music plays and are ambushed by Bowser Jr.'s ship. Fox blows up the turrets on the underside of Jr.'s ship. However, inside the ship, Jr. has his own weapons cabinet. Inside of that, by the way, we see both Flood and the Poltergust. Jr. takes out a massive bazooka, but Bowser, however, is cautious and asks Jr. not to kill Mario and Luigi. You can see that Bowser is conflicted. He loves his son, he wants to give him the life he told him the stories about, but he was truly starting to like Mario and Luigi, and wants to be their friend to some extent. Jr. decides not to kill them for his dad, and instead shoots them with the Super Scope, turning them into babies. No explanation is provided as to why this happens. Jr. drops the scope and it flies down and crash lands with the R-Wing carrying our heroes. As Fox and Peach, now on this new planet, try to repair the ship, Toad and Yoshi try to get the Super Scope and turn Mario and Luigi into adults again, but are attacked by a massive actual T-Rex and have a big chase sequence. Finally, Yoshi manages to turn the babies back into adults and the T-Rex back into a baby, and they meet up with Fox and Peach. Feeling hopeless, Luigi jokingly calls for help using Fox's radio in a trucker voice, and the Lumas from the Comet Observatory hears it. Meanwhile, Jr. tells Bowser that he's meant to be a bad guy, not friends with Mario and Luigi. Friends will just stab you in the back. They arrive at Planet Bowser, and Bowser is awestruck. Cut back to Fox and the gang as the Comet Observatory arrives, giving the heroes a viable ship to fly to Planet Bowser. Peach goes to the library and reads the book about her from the beginning of the movie. The book reads, "Once upon a time, there was a brave and noble princess named Peach. Her story begins many years ago when she lived on a small planet with her sister Rosalina. The two sisters were made of stardust. Their love burned as brightly as the stars themselves. Together they could summon the power of the cosmos." We see visually a baby Princess Peach touch hands with a young Rosalina and have a sort of cosmic connection, summoning grass on a barren planet. The story continues. But evil forces wanted the power for themselves. Rosalina had to send Peach away, to safety. The Toads raised and protected her until she grew strong enough to protect them. Peach realizes that Rosalina is actually her sister. Back at Planet Bowser, Jr. shows Bowser everything. They begin to absorb Rosalina's power in a massive generator to power up their big universe-destroying cannon that they're going to use to destroy the Mushroom Kingdom. Bowser's impressed and fully commits to siding with Jr. and being evil. He gives a rousing speech to his minions, and the final action sequence begins. Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Yoshi jump from the Comet Observatory and chase after Bowser and Jr. in Planet Bowser. At one point, Mario and Peach fall into a pit, and we see Bowser Jr.'s advanced security system try and take them out. But from Bowser Jr.'s perspective, it's like an NES-style graphical interface showing 8-bit Mario and Peach jumping around a regular Mario level. It's super fun, that kind of thing. Same thing from the first movie, with all the little references and gags. After escaping Bowser Jr.'s trials, Mario and Peach make it to a big bridge, like in the original Super Mario Bros. Bowser appears and fights them, throwing axes and shooting fire, with Mario finally using one of the axes to cut down the bridge and send Bowser into the lava pit below. Jr. comes out distraught, only for Bowser to re-emerge as Dry Bones Bowser. Mario and Peach run towards Rosalina, with Mario closing the gate behind Peach, locking him and the two Bowsers outside, to let Peach have the best chance at getting Rosalina. Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi fight with Dry Bowser and Bowser Jr. in, you guessed it, a visually impressive fight with lots of fun gags and references. The highlight of the fight is when Luigi gets a hold of Bowser Jr.'s paintbrush and uses it to draw Mr. Game & Watch, but says, "What? You know I never learned how to draw. It's a funny way to have Mr. Game & Watch show up." Mr. Game & Watch then actually fights with Bowser on behalf of Luigi before getting cut in half. Jr. uses his brush to create the dragon from Odyssey as his big final attack, which, for some reason, immediately tries eating him instead of Mario. Bowser's terrified, and Mario grabs the red star that makes you fly from Galaxy and uses it to fly into the dragon, destroying him. The fight with the Bowsers is over, as Mario has now saved Bowser Jr. Meanwhile, Peach makes her way to Rosalina and breaks her out of the generator by touching hands like from before. Rosalina breaks free, and Planet Bowser reforms into a grassy, nice planet instead. The Lumas ask to visit the Mushroom Kingdom and say they want to see the castle, only to cut to the empty hole in the ground where the castle was. They all decide they'll build another castle, in a fun 2D sprite cutscene using 8-bit graphics, and Mario finishes it off by using the cape, flying to the top, and planting the flag. Credits. There are 2 post-credits scenes. The first shows Fox, who says that the princess has fixed his warp drive and he's going back to his home. Dry Bowser and Jr. are locked in prison together, with a Luma guard who jokingly threatens them. The second post-credits scene shows someone else getting robbed by Ukiki, only for none other than Daisy to show up, punch him, and save the day. The end. You know, I feel like that was a lot, but in reality the plot was very simple. This was not a very complex movie. I'm sure you're wondering what I left out. This is probably the shortest plot summary in any of these All Lore Explained videos. What did I leave out? Nothing. Like, this was it. I want to save criticism for a little bit longer, but it is true that these characters in these movies are very passive, are very reactive, and a lot of in both Mario movies, it's something happens and the characters then react, and that's the same in this movie. Like Princess Peach, what did she do? Princess Peach got the Luma who told her to go and find Rosalina. So she goes to the Gateway Galaxy, and there she reacts to Toad getting robbed and chases after Ukiki, which leads her to Wart, and Wart openly mentions knowing something about Rosalina, which then makes Princess Peach want him to tell her what he knows, and that leads Princess Peach to go and find Star Fox, who... And it's like that kind of thing. It just keeps going. I could keep going, forever. But it's very reactive. You know what I'm saying? Mario and Luigi, the only reason they end up getting to Peach is because the things happened to them. Bowser Jr. sucked up the castle and dropped it on a planet, which just so happened to have a bee with a bug that would take them to the Gateway Galaxy. Boom. And that is how the plot is. There is very little... I had so much more to say, for example, with something like The Amazing Digital Circus. When I think that was the last All Lore Explained video I did, because The Amazing Digital Circus is filled with these, dialogue moments and conversations and introspective shots. And, you could take something like, I don't know how many of you have watched The Digital Circus, but if there was a scene where, Pomni said something about her previous life to Jax, and Jax reacted weird. You can take that and sort of analyze it from so many different angles. You could, the literal angle, what did Pomni actually say? What did Jax actually say? And then, what does this say about them as characters? The Mario movie isn't like that. I think that something that surprised me is that as I wrote the script, I remembered, Donkey Kong was in one of the flashback scenes when the little Yoshi segment where we saw a silly explanation as to how Yoshi ended up on the pipe, Donkey Kong showed up. And I remembered, and then he showed up later, right? Wasn't he around? And I realized, no, Donkey Kong wasn't in this movie at all, except for one little cameo. And so that's the thing, like, could you say that he was missed, that his character, not having him in this film deeply affected it? No. You know what I'm saying? And so I when you're listening to this and thinking like, well, wait, what was the story? The only real story outside of action happening because it has to happen is that Princess Peach was sad because she didn't know her family, and then it turns out that her family was Rosalina, and they had this sort of cosmic backstory that she didn't know about, so she wants to save Rosalina, and she does. That's it. There is no stakes outside of Rosalina's safety, and I mean, there are in the sense that Bowser Jr. is going to use Rosalina to power the cannon that can destroy planets, but I mean, that's just like a big third act final reason that you have to stop Bowser, and not much more. And so throughout this whole movie, like, there's not much to say. There's not much to say about the characters. There's not much to say about the story. That was it. I want to talk more lore, though. And this is important because I don't really think this movie has any. Yes, you heard me right. I know that's either obvious or obviously wrong based on who you are. You might be saying, yeah, of course the Mario movie wouldn't have any lore, dummy. It's the Mario movie. It's probably something... I think that's something that a lot of you would say to me. But others would probably scoff at me and say, we just saw Piantas, Pikmin, Star Fox, Rob, and Mr. Game & Watch all at once. Here's my thought. When Fox talked about how he's from another universe and we see him actually animated in 2D, I sort of thought, okay, this makes sense if they're actually doing it. They're setting up for a Smash Bros. Movie. Fox is from another universe, meaning that there are multiple Nintendo universes. Any character that doesn't make sense to be in the Mario universe can potentially join the Smash Bros. Movie if they're in a different universe from Mario, and get there like Fox did. I almost felt like perhaps showing us this little glimpse of Fox was like teasing more. There could be a story in this other universe. However, I think this is kind of quickly thrown out the window. Mr. Game & Watch, Rob, and Pikmin are not at all tied to the idea of being anything other than fan service. There is no establishing these characters. Mr. Game & Watch is even a stick figure drawing who gets torn in half rather than a video game character. There is no indication that Star Fox has any plans to join back up with Mario or re-enter the Mario universe. I saw plenty of people saying that the reason they had all these crossovers and the reason they did Galaxy in the first place is to cast a wide net, so to speak, introduce as many characters as they can, grow the Mario universe as fast as they can, and build towards that Smash movie. I think that's false. I don't think that's why they did Mario Galaxy, and I think that that's not happening. On top of the recent Miyamoto comments, which admittedly are sort of being taken out of context, he said that in terms of the Mario movie, it's not a Super Smash Bros. Movie, and so you can't be expecting a Mario movie where all the Nintendo characters appear. However, he does like doing things like putting the Pikmin in the movies. However, the way he said it, I mean, I don't think there's going to be a Smash Bros. Movie anytime soon. They didn't grow the Mario universe itself with this movie whatsoever. We see that Wart and his gang appear, sure, that's cool, but outside of that, I wouldn't say that counts as growing a universe. Sure, the Pikmin could appear in the future, but it's not like they were anything other than a little gag reference for fans. Or take, for example, Rosalina. There was a good amount that you could have done with Rosalina that was simply chosen not to be done. Rosalina's backstory, for example, was not only rewritten with the Peach sister twist, but everything from the original book and Galaxy was discarded. Rosalina does nothing, serves no other purpose than to be saved. Going into the next Mario movie, we're not in some enlightened age of Mario where, oh, after Galaxy, now we have all these things established we can work with. We have just as much as the first movie. I'll get into why I think this is later, but I think it's going to be more of the same. Maybe the next one will be called Mario Sunshine, or Super Mario and the Rise of Bowser, or something like that, and it'll be another generic adventure with Mario and his friends, and possibly a Nintendo icon who shows up as a helpful side character. Maybe next time, who knows, it'll be Kirby or Ness. For everything that could theoretically be spoken about here, there's nothing to actually say about it. What did you think of the inclusion of the Mario 2 characters? What could that mean for the further development of this franchise? Nothing, really. They were simple goons who served as obstacles for less than 3 minutes. They don't have backstory, and they weren't written in a way that makes you think they'll be back for more. What's up with Daisy? Well, I don't know, man, but based on Rosalina's 5 to 10 minutes of screen time max, I doubt much is up with Daisy. Yoshi, too, for as much fun as I think he was as a character, there's nothing to actually say about him. If this was the first movie, I'd have more to say about the actual deep lore. I'd be able to talk about the way that Brooklyn and the Mushroom Kingdom are separated. I'd question exactly how the warp pipes work and who built them. I'd try and nail down exactly what kind of world the film was building. But even compared to the first one, which is by no means a good movie, I don't think this one does any of that, even a little. We're taken to space not as a way to expand the Mario universe, but as an excuse to completely change the scenery as fast as humanly possible, and to put whatever they want in front of our faces. I can't ask a question like, where might the Pikmin have come from? Because that raises annoying questions. We haven't seen any environment in these movies in which the Pikmin would be suited, as they're so tiny. So an answer is either they're landing on regular planets like the ones we've seen and are blending in because they're so small, or there are specific tiny planets meant for them. The existence of the Pikmin and Olimar at Gateway Galaxy implies that they're aware of their size being much smaller than everyone else in the world. But the problem I'm having here is that this is a pointless question. There is no answer to this. Pikmin showed up because it's a Pikmin reference. That's it. Fox was very cool. I do hope we get either a standalone 2D or 3D movie. The brief introduction to Fox was probably the only really great part of the entire movie. They cut to an actual photo of Slippy, like the Slippy UI screen from Star Fox 64, and it was the only part of the movie to get an actual vocal, you could hear it laugh out of me. But I wouldn't say that Fox is gearing up to return to this universe anytime soon. The Mario movies, in my opinion, are like Nintendo's show floor, to utilize whatever characters they want in whatever ways they want, allowing you to test drive them around for a little while before whisking them backstage where you'll possibly never see them again. But that doesn't matter because they've already made their money on this project, and next time they'll have even more enticing characters show up. I view these movies as sort of singular things. It's not so much that, I've told this story before, I think. Actually, I'm not sure, but in Halloween Horror Nights, I was at Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios online for Haunted House, and like a couple guys in front of me were these two guys, and I think they were a little bit older than me, and they were talking about the Mario movie, and they said, "Oh, dude, did you hear that Mario Galaxy was announced? That's crazy." And the guy was like, "Yeah, what? How could they do that already?" And I was so confused, because then the next guy said in response, which is even better, "I don't know how they're doing Galaxy already. They haven't even introduced Yoshi." Now, you can say that this is like fake people I've made up. I promise you they were real. And I mean, all power to them for liking that kind of thing and for talking like that. But in my opinion, I remember thinking like, what? Like, how could you... There's nothing to introduce. You don't have to explain Yoshi before you get to Galaxy. The amount of people that I've seen that were like, man, I would have liked them to take the Mario universe a little slower. I don't want to jump right into Galaxy. I wish we had gotten Mario 2, 3, World as movies first. Where's the movie in that? Where's the movie in Mario World? You know what I'm saying? We could have done the story where Mario has to fight the Koopalings or something. Like all of these Mario games are... There's a good guy who is objectively good. We'll never, ever ask anything about his character because he's Super Mario and you're playing as him. And there's a bad guy named Bowser who's captured the princess. If you want to do Mario 3, Mario World, Super Mario, any of them like that, the movie would be pretty darn simple and pretty darn similar to the first one. Like that first one was all of those classic Marios in one. It wasn't the first Mario Brothers game. You know what I'm saying? And that's just this thing that I think is weird, where people were like, oh, it's the Galaxy movie, so they're adapting the story of Galaxy. When it was clear, at least to me from the beginning, they were never going to adapt the story of Galaxy. This is the concept of Mario Galaxy. It's very much like how Nintendo operates with their games. You know how every Nintendo game now has to have some big gimmick that is sold to people, even though it's a small part of the game. To be honest with you, I have kind of been disappointed with Nintendo recently, so I can't even think of a good example. Oh, no, I can. Metroid Prime 4 had the motorcycle. Did you play Metroid Prime 4? Did you know that the worst part of the gosh darn game is the motorcycle? And yet that was the big selling point. If they could have called it Metroid Prime 4, Too Fast, Too Furious, 2 Metroids, they would have. They loved that darn motorcycle so much. There was an amiibo of the motorcycle. Are you kidding me? And like, if you remember any of the Mario Tennis ones, like Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, the whole game is sold on the concept of the Ultra Smash. Meanwhile, the Ultra Smash is just, you can charge up a special move. That's how I view the Mario Galaxy movie. It is not, nobody sat in a room and said, guys, we should adapt the story of Galaxy. I think there's a lot there. Nobody says that. They say, okay, we need to repackage the movie we've already basically made. We want to make another Mario movie, and we want to have similar beats, similar, ideas, but we want to put in characters that people, like different characters. We want to put in, how can we sell another movie? How can we make people go back and basically watch the same movie? And I'm not saying this in like a malicious way. This is kind of all movies. It is very rare that the sequel of a movie is uniquely different. Like Terminator 2 is like the internet YouTube film bro answer for what a good sequel is, and it's true. Because it's so different, it completely twists everything. With something like Mario or Home Alone or, Sonic the Hedgehog, there's only so much you can do to convince people that this new movie is different enough from the first to be worth seeing. And one of those things is like what Mario does. This isn't Mario, this is the Mario Galaxy movie. We're going to have Brie Larson as Rosalina, and we're going to have, and yes, they obviously pull from the game, but the galaxy theming, the space theming, it's not so much because they want to tell that story, it's because they need some aesthetic to package the movie with to sell it as a sequel. And that's what they do. That's why Galaxy exists as it does, and that's why I see something like, I want to see this like some other people do. I want to see this like the guys online at Universal did. I want to be able to go home and talk to my friends and say like, oh my gosh, guys, how are they going to do Daisy? Like, what are they going to do with Daisy? When I think the answer is they're looking for celebrities and they're eventually going to find one, and they'll do either something where it's just part of the team or nothing, like Rosalina. I will say, as far as the voice casting goes, because it's kind of getting away from me. The cynicism, the negativity, it's escaping. But so before I get there, I will say that the voices were fine. I didn't have a problem with Chris Pratt Mario. Sorry, guys, I thought it was fine. I actually really liked Charlie DeLuigi. Brie Larson was really good as Rosalina. I wish she had more lines. I have no problem with Brie Larson whatsoever. No, I'm not one of those YouTubers, guys. I thought she was great. I thought, leading into the movie, I actually really enjoyed seeing how much she loved Mario and Galaxy, and like that was like a cool thing. Like, oh, that's a perfect actor for Rosalina. You've got it right there. And then when I saw the movie and she was so underutilized, I was like, boy, what was the point of that? And I actually think it's funny because I think I know the point of that. And it's the same reason that Donald Glover was cast as Yoshi. I love Donald Glover. This is probably the lamest, most mainstream example, but I love Community. It's a very good show. Okay, I'm sorry. I know that's mainstream. I think he's a great actor. I think he's fantastic. He said the word Yoshi the whole film. Okay, I'm not going to pretend like he would give a standout performance here. And I think the interesting question is, why cast him as Yoshi? And I know that you might be saying, oh, well, yeah, they cast everybody as celebrities, but why cast Donald Glover as Yoshi? Why cast him as Yoshi? And the answer, in my opinion, is because they're saying to themselves, okay, we're going to have a creature that only says Yoshi the whole film. It doesn't matter who the voice is, because we have other voices that we're bringing on. In my opinion, it comes from a place of, what if we could get Donald Glover fans, or people that like him or might like him, to watch the Mario Galaxy movie? To cast a wider net. And the way I see it, Donald Glover was on the press tour for the Mario Galaxy movie. If you watch any, promotional Jimmy Fallon podcast, news, any of those things, or it's like Good Morning America, where it's like the stars of Mario talk about the movie, he's there. And I mean, he should be there. He's a main character, but I think, in my opinion, that's Nintendo's point of hiring him. It's to get another face out there to potentially sell it to more people who might not like Chris Pratt or Charlie Day, or who, the people that didn't see the first one, that weren't convinced. Here's new people, and maybe you'll be convinced to see the second one. I wouldn't be surprised if the third one's got a whole bunch of other well-known actors in very minor roles. As far as the actual deep lore of the movie goes, the only thing that I'd say is a mystery or worth theorizing about is when, in Rosalina's story about Peach as a girl, there were evil forces that wanted Peach and Rosalina's power for themselves. What does that mean? Who were the evil forces? It presumably wasn't Bowser, so could we be actually secretly hinting towards a bigger bad in the Mario universe? Or will this never be brought up again? Also worth mentioning, it's confirmed that Rosalina and Peach are literally made of stardust. What does that mean for them? Again, I kind of think nothing really. Another thing I think that is worth talking about, because I know I just got done saying there's no development, there's no characters, there's no lore, there's no deepness, you're not supposed to think about anything. But I will say it definitely seemed like they were trying to make the audience think that Bowser was, conflicted. He wanted to be a good guy. Like, in the beginning, when Mario turns him big again, you think that Bowser's going to immediately flip. But he doesn't. He actually helps them out, and he genuinely makes the suggestion of becoming, a worker in the mines for these bees, just so that Mario and Luigi can go save Rosalina. And it's like, okay, well, hold on. Maybe Bowser's kind of not totally evil, and then he's upset when Bowser Jr.'s, trying to kill them, and it's like, I kind of think Nintendo's doing a thing here where they're building towards Bowser being a friend of Mario and Luigi. But then they go back on that, and they do a thing where Bowser's like, he's angry, and he's like, you humiliate me and turn me small, and it's like, it was hard for me to determine as an audience member where exactly it was meant to be going, like, emotionally, I guess. Like, when you do something like that in a film, right? When you have a character potential good, potential bad, and you have a character like Bowser. Let's just use Bowser for an example. You sort of show that he's got a soft side to him, and he actually likes Mario and Luigi. And then obviously he is Bowser, and you sort of show that he's battling with it internally. And when he's with Junior on the ship, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want you to kill Mario and Luigi," you're sort of doing a thing where you are showing that it's conflicting, and is Bowser going to go to the bad side or the good side? And is Bowser going to fully align with Junior, or is Bowser going to instead, end up saving the day and stopping Junior because he says, like, "Oh, I've been a bad father. I never meant to do this. I never meant to make you think that friends backstab you, Junior. You gotta, if you are mean, then there's nobody in your life," something like that. Which, I mean, I guess Nintendo's allergic to something like that, because that would involve a character going through an arc and coming out differently at the end of the tunnel. But, I'm joking. But, instead what they do is sort of, they have their cake and eat it too. They have Bowser sort of conflicted, and then he fully sides with Junior, but then there's still a side of him that's not. And then at the end of the movie, Mario helps him and saves Junior's life, and there's clearly like an emotional level to Bowser, but it doesn't really change anything, and he's still in the same spot he's in the first movie. So is it worth, opening Bowser up to potential, sincerity with Mario and Luigi, if all you're going to do is close it back down and say, like, yeah, I guess he could like Mario and Luigi in some theoretical universe, but he's Bowser, so he's going to be the villain in the next one. Like, why do that, I actually think that just the little thing I've suggested here, make Bowser in the end of this movie decide not to kill Mario and Luigi and say, like, Junior, no, you could have had the emotional arc. You have Bowser. I mean, I'm sorry, I sound crazy, but you've got a character who has a clear flaw, and you have the potential to make them go through a narrative arc in which they realize that they're wrong and come out better. I know this ties into more of my opinions. I'll get to it in a minute. Making Rosalina and Peach sisters destroys the Mario canon. No, I'm joking. But for real, I do think it's indicative of Rosalina not having anything to do in this movie. So to try and glue her back into the main plot, they add this random twist. I think it's also because Nintendo is allergic to expanding their franchises. When they have the key brand icons locked in, there is no going back. Quick, I want you to do something for me. Are you ready? Think of Super Mario birthday decorations. Did you think of the new Super Mario Bros. Style? Of that one Monty Mole render on like a happy birthday sign, of Bowser with his arms crossed? That's what I'm talking about. Mario games will only ever have Bowser as the main villain. The plot will only ever revolve around rescuing Peach, and it will go on like that forever and ever. This is, in my opinion, an example of that. You can't have some random unknown character showing up and being all important. Rosalina needs to be tied to Peach in the eyes of Nintendo. Somehow make them related so that she feels more like an extension of Princess Peach than her own character. This is sort of bleeding into my own thoughts on the film, so I don't think I need to hide it anymore. I was not the biggest fan of this film. The thing is, it wasn't as insulting as people are claiming. It's just not really a movie. When the first FNAF came out, the FNAF movie, I should say, I specifically criticized the way that fans just want to see things they like on the screen. No nuance, no interesting takes on the source material, just things they know. They want to see it presented. I said specifically they want basically visual encyclopedias. That is very much still true. And to an extent, I think this movie checks that box. Wart, Birdo, Mr. Game & Watch, Rob the Robot, Fox McCloud, Bowser Jr., Mega Legs, and then they all jump and fly and fight like action figures. The obvious problem that everyone has said already is that there's no story. This is, in my opinion, a Pandora's box-like statement, as I think it goes so much deeper than a statement as simple as it needs a better story. So let's finally talk about this, okay? You've seen the Rotten Tomatoes scores. They're very bad. Is the Mario movie bad? Is the Mario Galaxy movie bad? What is the problem, and what does it mean to have a bad story? I think that there are two central problems that go hand in hand. Okay, first of all, by the way, to answer your question, yeah, the Mario movie's bad. The Mario Galaxy movie is also bad. And the reason I say the word bad is because I'm not the kind of person to say like, oh, it's okay. Oh, that's okay. I feel firmly. I'm sorry about that, but I feel firmly. And as much as I didn't hate the Mario Galaxy movie, I wouldn't tell anyone with a straight face it was a good movie. Here's the thing. There are two words that are used very frequently, one of which is obviously story, and the other of which is pacing. To talk about pacing very quickly, I think that the biggest problem with the first Mario movie was probably the pacing. And I think pacing is a bad word to use because nobody really knows what they're talking about. I saw someone say, right before the movie came out, like it was a review of Galaxy, this was like yesterday, one of the reviewers said like, oh, this was breakneck speed, things just happened so fast, and nobody was properly introduced, and, we never have time to emotionally sit with any beat, and there was no underlying narrative that tied these things together, things just kept happening. And one of the comments was from, like, Super Mario Evan, #1 Mario fan 11, who said, like, so is the pacing bad this time, do you think, or no? And it's like, I'm sorry, but people are using the term pacing without really understanding. They're seeing that the common trend is, in fandom, Twitter, in Mario fandom, oh, the pacing of the Mario movie was bad. And in my opinion, I think the problem is the word pacing itself. I think a better word for pacing, because pacing implies speed, how fast things are happening. But I don't think that that is a valid way to judge the pacing of a movie. Like, I can think of movies with lots of things happening very fast, I could describe movies that feel slow and feel fast, and I could make them feel the opposite way by the way I describe the plot. Like, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. I'm never good at that. I think you could take a movie like Bullet Train, and you could say, Bullet Train has this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, therefore it's bad pacing. But I think the pacing is fine, because I think that you have time to sit with everything. There is no thing has to happen, you barely introduce anything before it happens. You have time to sit with everything, and that's why I love that movie so much. In the case of this discussion, I think that it would be better to not use the word pacing. I think it would be better to use the word digestion, which is a gross word to say about movie facts, about how good a movie is, but I do think digestion is a better term, because the problem isn't so much that things have to happen fast. The problem is how long you have and how well you digest everything that happens in the movie. I rewatched the Mario movie the other day to get a good idea of just, what to expect for the Galaxy movie. And the thing that shocked me the most was that I think it was like Peach and Mario's first conversation was just so awkward, right? Mario shows up and Peach says, What you're a human? Oh my gosh, where did you come from? And Mario says, me and my brother came from Brooklyn, and then I fell in this pipe, and he's in the pipe, and he's in the Darklands or whatever. And Peach goes, oh my, if he's in the Darklands, it might already be too late. Bowser's gonna kill him. And Mario goes, what? How can we stop him? And Peach says, let's go see what you've got, and then takes him to the obstacle course. And it's like, slow down. Like, these are two characters meeting for the first time. You need to have Mario introduce himself. You need to have these characters. Like, the third thing Peach says is, okay, let's go see what you're made of. Let's go to the obstacle course. Like, who are these characters to each other? You know what I mean? I think that the problem is digestion. We don't have I'm going to use Bullet Train for example. Okay, here's Bullet Train. We have to establish two assassins, and we have to establish how they're different from each other. what their personalities are, and also who they are as a group. And so within a few minutes of each other, of itself, we get a scene where we see them argue about how many kills they got on their last assassination mission. And it's funny because you see their personalities in the argument, and then they cut back to show you that what the actual truth was as they go through the assassination mission, and they show how many people they killed. And then we cut back, and we then see that the one assassin is a big fan of Thomas the Tank Engine and uses Thomas the Tank Engine stickers to describe people. And it's just like, this is not anything crazy. I'm not saying like, listen how good this is. It's just, hey, look, they had two characters, and in order to make them unique and interesting and different than the other characters and also different than each other, they had unique personality traits. They just had them talk to each other. You know, they had them talk to each other. They didn't do that in the Mario movie. Mario barely has time to talk to anyone. Like 90% of conversations in the first Mario movie is Mario going, hey, what? Hey, wait a minute. Wait, where are you going? Hey, wait a minute. Hey, wait a minute. And it's like, like Toad meets him. He's like, oh, hey, Mario. Yo, all right, come on, let's go. Mushroom Kingdom. And Mario's like, hey, wait a minute. That's the whole thing. And then, I think that, you know, a lot of people said, I saw this post on Twitter that was like the scene on the Rainbow Road from the first movie where Mario and Peach are sort of like being flirty and talking back and forth, and Donkey Kong comes and makes fun of Mario. That's so good. They should include more scenes like that. And yeah, they should, because that's like the first time that any of these characters have actual characterization in the film that's like done properly. So yeah, I think pacing is a potential issue. I don't know how bad I thought the pacing was in this film. And that really comes down to the second thing, which is the story. Your characters need to be something. I said earlier that Donkey Kong wasn't in this film, and that I didn't realize it until after the fact. And I think that that's a very bad thing, because if all of your characters are replaceable with other characters, if none of your characters have any element of uniqueness that makes them who they are, that's bad. Like, when you're writing a story, very rarely is it, hey, let me come up with a fun world, let me come up with a crazy character, let me come up with a ridiculous villain, let me come up with a whole society and a weird, unique system. Oh, shoot, now I guess I gotta come up with a theme for all this and some story stuff, don't I? That's not how it works, right? When you are, you know, John Pixar, you come up with, yeah, I'd like to make a movie about environmental stuff and, you know, this and that, and then you make WALL-E based off of that. Or you say, oh, I'd like to make a movie about, you know, I don't know. I can't think of the gosh darn. I want to make a movie about I can't think of, for example, I hate coming up with examples. But in a case like this, like, all your characters need to do something for the main story, okay? They all need to tie in. I think that there is a good children's animated film that has a good story, that is enjoyable for adults, that is a children's film that does not have a very deep story, and yet it manages to be extremely enjoyable because it does everything right. And I think it's Despicable Me, which is probably not the movie you'd think I'd say. You'd think I'd give you something like Toy Story or Monsters, Inc., but those are too easy and too actually great to really use as an example. They're too easy to say, yeah, well, those are perfect. Mario movie's not going to be a Toy Story. I think it could be very much better than a Despicable Me. Despicable Me is a very fun movie because it's fun to see the characters. You are immediately introduced to a very unique character you've never seen before, who is Gru, and he's a villain. And he's not just a villain in the supervillain sense. He's a villain in society, and he freezes people to get ahead on the coffee shop line, and that's enjoyable to watch as someone who will never do that, you know? You're not going to do that, and it's enjoyable to see him do these things that you kind of wish you could do. And so that's fun. And then you see the three girls who are, you know, they're orphans, and they're sort of really badly mistreated in their adoption home, and you sort of feel very bad for them. So when they go to Gru, and Gru starts to, like, destroy the world for them, that's extremely satisfying. With the scene where Gru wins, what's her name, the doll, the unicorn, because he destroys the carnival game that the guy was, like, being a jerk with. Like, that's really satisfying to watch. And it's also fun to see Gru talk with the girls, because those characters, you know, bounce off each other really well. And on top of the characters, there's also a good story as a whole. There's also, like the plot is very interesting. Gru wants to steal the moon. You see through the plot who Gru is. You see as when when the bank chooses not to fund him and instead gives the money to Vector, you could see that he sort of still powers through with the help from the minions, and like you get a full sense of who Gru is as a character. And then you watch his arc. You watch that change go through. You watch him become a better person and like a father through the course of Despicable Me. And whatever you think about it being probably like, oh, it's a stupid movie, it's really good for that reason. The Mario movie doesn't have any of that. And I think that the biggest thing that upsets me is that it doesn't even need all of it. It just needs one, right? Like, I personally would be more inclined to share a clip. As much as I love The Amazing Digital Circus, as much as I love it, I totally love it, I would be more inclined to share a clip online with friends of The Amazing World of Gumball than The Digital Circus, a funny scene from The Amazing World of Gumball, because the characters are so well written, because the dialogue is so fun and feels realistic, and all of those characters they're so unique, and it's so enjoyable to see the things they say. And the show has a unique tone of voice. Like, because of that, The Amazing World of Gumball is not something that I would ever be embarrassed about finding enjoyable as an adult. If I saw a YouTube short of a clip from Gumball and said, oh, that's super funny, I'd never feel like, oh, that's stupid. Here I am watching a stupid kid's show. Because it doesn't matter if it's intended for kids or not. What matters is if it's good, And so with something like Gumball, okay, there's a good example of, maybe every episode doesn't have like some kind of central arc or theme or great story, but the character interactions alone are enough to make it enjoyable. The Mario movie does not have that. There is no really enjoyable character interactions. Everybody's generally positive and pleasant. Jack Black is the closest you get to anything like that in either film, but he falls short because there's nobody really to bounce off of. Like, Bowser and Mario don't have the sort of dialogue exchange I would hope that a film version of Bowser and Mario would have. I think that you could also do a lot of people are saying that the big problem is that Mario doesn't change. I've seen so many people say, oh, the Sonic movies are better than the Mario movies because Sonic and the central characters in the Sonic movies go through a central arc. They change. And the Mario movie, the characters in Mario do not. And I think that this is one of the biggest missteps when critiquing these films, because yes, it is true that typically if you're writing a film, you would be advised to make your main character go through a sort of central arc in which they change from A to B. Obviously, that is film 101, film 100.5. Even before 101, you learn that, and that's totally fair. And there is, however, a problem, which is that Nintendo would never do this. Here's the deal. In any movie, you could name, or in most movies, you could name a character who goes through a central arc, who starts as A, and that is bad, and then learns to be B, right? Michael, the gruff cop who lost his partner years ago, doesn't trust anyone, and he has to learn to trust again. There's A to B, and there you go. Stuff like that, every kid's movie typically has it. Gru goes from being, a selfish villain to a good father, even though he keeps that villainous attitude, and that's what most of these movies have, and that's fair. The problem is that you'd have to have a character with a flaw then, and you'd have to potentially bounce that flaw off of the villain, or another mentor character who sees the right way to go about it, and so it all has to be based around some central flaw of your main character. And the problem here is that you would never catch Nintendo dead giving Mario a flaw. There will never be a flaw that they would say, yeah, Mario, you know what? He's greedy, or he's not brave. Mario is the Mickey Mouse of video games. Mickey Mouse has no flaws. He can be mischievous sometimes, but that's not a flaw. That's played for comedy typically. In the same way, Mario never has a flaw. Mario never has to get over anything. I think that one of the reasons I really like the ending of the original Luigi's Mansion, despite the fact that it's very, very simple, is because Luigi cries after saving his brother, going through something that you can tell is very clearly difficult for him because he's scared. And as simple as that is as a story, I'm not pretending that that's a great story or anything, it works for me. Whereas Mario has never had to struggle with anything. And, I've seen people say, oh, no, you don't understand. Mario had to learn that he was enough. That's like the only... I saw a post on Twitter the other day that said something like that. Luigi had to learn to be brave, and Mario had to learn that his attitude was the right one to have, and that he was doing the right thing. Which is like, that's like saying my A to B was learning that I had to go from A to A. Like, no, that's not an arc. An arc is not, hey, I have this attitude towards life. You know what? I think that's the right one to have. That's not an arc. And Luigi becoming more brave, we didn't see that. We didn't see that at all, And so in Galaxy, we have the same problem. There are no central arcs. There are no characters that change over the course of the film. Mario and Luigi are the exact same at the end as they are at the beginning. So how do you do it? How do you give Mario a flaw that ties into the core narrative and makes it so that he has to change by the end of the film? You don't. I think that you'll have a very hard time thinking of one. I'd like to see you think of one. Genuinely. My favorite kind of comments are the ones in videos like this where it's like, give me your pitch for something unique. That's because it's creative. It's like creative writing. It's fun. And so, yeah, I mean, if you could think of a good central flaw to give Mario, go for it. Tell me, please. But I think instead, it's more interesting to think of what else you can do. All of these videos that say that Sonic is good and Mario is bad because Sonic goes through an arc and Mario doesn't, they're missing the fact that you don't actually have to go through an arc to have a very good character or a very good film. One of the best films of all time, a film that my film professor in high school called a perfect film, capital P, perfect film, that I personally agree with, is Back to the Future. It is an incredible film, and its character is completely passive and does not go through an arc. He does not... In the first movie. He does not change. He is his sort of rebellious attitude that he has in the beginning of the film is what he carries with him into the ending of the film. And even though you could argue that he got more, he was mature. No, not really. He's the same character in the end as he was in the beginning. Back to the Future is about a kid, Marty McFly, who is in high school. His crazy scientist pal Doc Brown, he invented this time machine, and it goes wrong. Doc dies, and Marty, escaping the people that shot Doc, accidentally goes back all the way to, I forget the specific year, back when his mother and father were in high school, and he needs Doc's help to get back to the future. So what happens? Is there time travel shenanigans? Is there all kinds of crazy mix-ups? No. The story is about Marty getting his parents back together, because the real character in Back to the Future is not Marty. It's Marty's father, George McFly. And in the beginning of Back to the Future, we see that George McFly is a loser. Marty's father is a total loser, and he's bullied by Biff Tannen, the I forget what job he has. He's like a mechanic or something in the modern day, or I forget. But he's sort of just bullied by Biff and taken advantage of. And George is a loser, and Marty, feels bad for his father. So then when Marty goes back in time, he has the chance to, he sees that on a family photo, he's disappearing because whatever he did made it so that his parents will never meet. So now Marty has to get his parents to meet before he can go back to the future, or else he'll never exist. And so in doing so, Marty helps George confront all the things that make him a loser and a weird nerd. And in the ending of the film, we see George McFly actually confront and punch Biff in the face. And it is such a satisfying moment, despite the fact that George isn't actually the protagonist, it's Marty. And so what's going on here? Well, you don't have to have your main character go through an arc. You can have a secondary character be influenced by your main character. If your main character is going to be deemed perfect in the eyes of the world of the film, you can have a secondary character be influenced by them and have it just as effective as if it was a main character going through the arc. Look at Elf, or I guess like I said, Back to the Future. Elf is a movie where Buddy the Elf is never in the wrong. Well, he's in the wrong when, he's creeping in the women's bathroom. But in terms of the film, Buddy the Elf is never wrong. They never criticize him. They never say you have to be less elf-like. They just say, people think he's weird. That's the worst slap on the wrist Buddy gets. Buddy doesn't change in the film. Buddy doesn't have to change. As a matter of fact, when he's so depressed because he thinks he's been doing everything wrong, he is reaffirmed by Santa and told, no, you've been doing everything right. It's actually Buddy's father, Walter Hobbs, who has to change, who goes from being stuck up and, you've seen the film probably. and then by the end of the film, he's fun and jolly and a family man, all because of Buddy's Christmas spirit. That's an example of how you could also do it. Have your main character be the perfect example of a person in the world of your film, and then have a secondary character who is completely not, who gets affected by that main character. And so, again, we run into some problems. How would you do this with Mario? Would you have Mario have some flaw that allows him to go through an arc and change? Would you have some secondary character from Mario who is deeply flawed and has to be influenced by Mario? What is Mario's unique attitude that makes him perfect in the eyes of the world? And this is where you come down to the real problem, which is that the games they're based off of don't provide this. You know, I've seen a ton of people talking about how Galaxy should have taken the Rosalina backstory and the ending of Galaxy. I've seen so many people online on Twitter over the last few days saying, I'm so disappointed, I guess it's over the last day, that I'm so disappointed that they didn't adapt the ending of Galaxy. Now, if you don't know, in the ending of Mario Galaxy, Mario sort of reshapes the entire universe, like the universe is reborn, and it's sort of weird, and at least when I played it, I thought it was like confusing and a little abstract, but basically Mario helps the universe become reborn. And the Rosalina backstory involved Rosalina and her parents, and how Rosalina was alone with the Lumas, and blah, 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 blah. It's like 11 pages or it's like a billion pages. The problem with adapting either of these things is that I don't think they'd work for the film. I don't think that the rebirth of the universe makes any sense for this film, for a kid's film, for something that has to lead into a potential sequel. It just doesn't make sense to do. It also wouldn't feel very effective. You know, there's a difference between the Mario Galaxy movie and the actual Mario Galaxy game. If the world was reborn in the end of Mario Galaxy, the movie, first of all, how weird would it be if the world was reborn and reshaped? Like, that's just confusing and strange. Second of all, it wouldn't be emotionally resonant whatsoever with what we had just seen. The Mario movies are action-packed. There is no, the quiet sadness of Mario Galaxy. There was no quiet sadness in the Mario Galaxy movie, okay? And as far as the Rosalina story goes, how could you have adapted that into the film and made it mean something? How could you would have needed Rosalina to be a main character. You would have needed a natural way to dump all of this exposition about her backstory into her character, and you would have needed to make it mean something in the long run for her character. The ending of her character's story would have had to tie into it. And they don't have that, so they didn't do it, and they can't do it. And I think that a lot of people don't get it. Like, this is why I said earlier that what people want is an encyclopedia, a visual encyclopedia of things they know. If Mario Galaxy was like a loose adaptation of the Galaxy story, there was no real meat to it. It was just stuff from Galaxy repurposed, and Mario was on the Comet Observatory, and Mario, read the book about Rosalina. Like, people would be like, oh, that was awesome. But it wouldn't make anywhere near as much money, so they'd never do something like that. So I don't know personally, to get back to the original point, I don't know how I would fix this issue. I don't know what I would say. I don't know a fatal flaw I could give to Mario. I don't know a big flaw that I could give to another character. I don't know what I'd say about Mario that makes him above others in terms of the Mario world. The games are not as deep. They don't have story that people could make a film off of. Not at all. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say. And that's not me saying, oh, what did you expect from a Mario movie? They're not that deep. Of course not. I'm saying the films don't have the stuff to make a film. I'm sorry, the games don't have enough content in the story to make a film. So you have to write the film. Like, if you want to make a good movie, you write the film itself. You don't take it all from the game. I feel like I'm just talking in circles, but ultimately at the end of the day, what it comes down to is the fact that Nintendo's making so much money from this. And fans are sort of like scattershot, scatterbrained, not fully sure if it's good or it's bad, or, you can't have a good Mario movie, or you can't have a good Mario movie, or if it should have deep themes, or if Mario should go through an arc. And, I'm sitting here laying down my thoughts. I ended up talking about this for way longer than I thought I would. And it's like, man, to some extent, here I am saying, you could have Mario go through an arc, you could have another character go through an arc and get affected by Mario. Does it matter? Does it matter? I think Mario is sort of, The book Save the Cat, which I reference very frequently, it's sort of like a baby's first screenwriting book. If you were not a literal baby, if you were starting screenwriting, that is always the book I'd recommend first. That's the book I see tons of people recommending first. It's one of those books where a lot of people will be like, actually you shouldn't read that, but that seems to be the contrarian opinion, not the actual opinion, because the actual book is super, super knowledgeable and helpful. And it basically details the 3-act structure and the hero's journey that everyone follows. And the Mario movie doesn't follow that. The Mario movie doesn't follow that at all. And one of the things that it says, too, is like there's a genre of movie called the superhero genre, where it breaks down the basic genres of what a movie could be. And I don't even know where I'm going with this. The Mario movie fits into the category of what it claims is a superhero genre, which is that there is one or more individuals who are, elite or above the others in the world, and they use that power to, make the movie. That's why the movie's interesting, because there's someone with extraordinary abilities. But they don't, I don't know how to explain it. The Mario movie, theoretically, every single little thing where you're like, okay, well, let's give it a little leg room here. Let's give it a little bit of room to stand on. There's nothing. The story is nothing. It's empty. There was no story in this. There was just characters doing things because they have to go do things. The characters, the interaction, okay, well, whatever. No big deal. No good story. That's fine. What about the interactions between the characters? Is there fun character interactions? No, there's nothing. There's not even a little bit. Okay, well, what about some arcs? Do characters go through arcs? Do characters influence others to go through arcs? No, there is nothing. Okay, well, maybe it fits into the stereotype genre of superhero movie where Mario is an exceptional, whatever, superpowered individual. No, it's not, because everyone in the Mario movie has superpowers, and Mario isn't really that special whatsoever. It really is, there is no difference between the Mario Galaxy movie and the picture of the Mario Galaxy movie on the side of a box of a Happy Meal. It does the same thing. It sells you Mario. I have such deep, dark, depressing thoughts about the way that it works, and the fact that nothing that I've said is really going to matter in the long run, or people aren't going to take this and say you know what, the Mario movies are actually no good. Everybody's sort of realizing that. Same with the FNAF movie, but it's too late. You've let the cat out of the bag. I personally think, and now this is going off the rails, and this is where I'm going to stop. I'm not going to get into this because this is truly dark territory. I think the problem is fandom. Because in order for fandom to exist, it requires inherently positive viewpoints. If a fandom exists, let's just say 5 Nights at Freddy's, for example, the fandom has to be inherently positive. They have to like the thing. They can't say the thing is bad. Otherwise, what are they fans of? When Security Breach came out, I remember it felt like we were at this sort of weird tipping point where so many people were like, this is terrible. And then all of a sudden there was just this massive group of people that were like, you know what? 5 Nights at Freddy's Security Breach is great. And it's man, there's this sort of inherent positivity that's required with any fan base. And I think that's why something like the FNAF movie can succeed. That's something like why the first the first Mario movie could succeed. And it's because it has to. It has to for the fan base to exist. And then when something like this happens, where it's hey, this is bad, and the fan base has almost shifted to being a fan base of hating on it, it's well, that's too late. The discussion has... I don't know. I have already seen reviews of people saying, what did you expect from a Mario movie, bro? I saw the things I like in it. And that's fine. That's fine if you see the things you like. I highly recommend the Star Wars Visual Encyclopedia, the 5 Nights at Freddy's Visual Encyclopedia, the Super Mario Visual Encyclopedia. You'll see characters you like, you'll see things you like, you could read about events that happen that you like to hear about. It's fantastic. It's really, really great. At the end of the day, I thought the Mario Galaxy was subpar at best, and that's at best. I thought that I had more emotion watching the Paw Patrol trailer beforehand for some new Paw Patrol movie, even though that emotion that I felt was sort of embarrassment and disgust that I was being shown this trailer, and I was wondering what it was saying about me, a grown man at midnight at the Mario movie, preparing to spend my night making a video about it. I felt like there was no good story to this. There was no story. If somebody asked me, what was this? Oh, what's the Mario movie about? It's about nothing. A princess gets kidnapped, and all of the Mario characters run around and fight and smash into each other like stupid action figures for hours. Ironically, this is my one big truest statement. If you could take any statement from this video and crystallize it in what I think is pure truth, it's this one. And it's that this should have been a video game. This Mario movie should have been a video game, because the story, despite being nothing, was above the video games on some level. I thought that the Bowser Jr. thing was fun. That was the best part of a film, in my opinion. Well, second only to Fox. But imagine if this was a game. Like, imagine if it looked like this, and it had the environments that looked like this, and they made a Mario game where it was like, oh yeah, you go to all these different places and you see all these different things and you fight all these different people and you go to this big like hub world, and the hub world it's got Pikmin and Piantas and Rob the Robot, and Star Fox shows up and helps you save the day at the end of the game, and Bowser's got this massive planet that's like a theme park. Like, that would be the greatest Mario game ever. We'd all say like, that was the coolest Mario game. But instead it's a movie. It's a movie. So this was Super Mario Galaxy, all lore explained. I also tried the title Full Story Explained. I don't know which one is going to get. I don't know which one's going to win the A/B testing. If it's Full Story Explained, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that the plot summary itself was very short. If you actually wanted a plot summary and were hoping that this was an hour and 12 minutes of plot summary, I couldn't. There's literally, I could barely stretch it to 20 minutes. I skipped nothing. I hope you enjoyed the video. I had a lot to say, clearly, a lot that I didn't expect to say. Please, if you want more All Lore Explained videos, make sure to like and subscribe. My name is Spookydood. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.